From orphan to wrestling champion, Stan Stasiak's life was no walk in the park. This guy fought his way to the top, facing off against legends like Bruno Sammartino, and then in the end, faced a terrible tragedy. Let's learn about the man behind the muscle, Stan, the man. Stasiak was an epic name in the world of professional wrestling. He battled his way to the top, even winning the WWWF Championship in 1973. Our man was a true powerhouse inside the ring, facing off against legends like Pedro and Bruno Sammartino. But Stan's story starts long before he stepped into the wrestling ring. He had a really tough childhood. He was an orphan. He grew up in an orphanage, and life wasn't easy. But you know what? That tough start made him strong and determined. It taught him how to fight for what he wanted, and that helped him a lot when he became a wrestler. You see, Stasiak became a professional wrestler, and wow, was he strong. People called him a human tank because he was so powerful. But he wasn't just strong, he was also a very skilled wrestler. He knew all the right moves and how to use his strength to his advantage. In the 1960s, he traveled all over the place, wrestling for different groups and battling it out with some of the biggest names in the business, like the famous Bruno Sammartino. Things got really exciting when Stasiak joined the WWWF. To give you more context, let's go back in time to December 1st, 1973. The place was packed. Madison Square Garden was full of screaming fans, and the energy was electric. Stasiak was facing Pedro, who was the WWWF champion at that time. They had an amazing match, both wrestlers giving it their all. But then something crazy happened. Stasiak made a lethal move, and most people thought he got more aggressive than he should have. Suddenly, the referee declared Stasiak was the winner, and there was too much confusion around. Can you imagine the reaction? The crowd went absolutely wild. They thought Stasiak cheated to win, or maybe the whole thing was planned that way. It caused a huge controversy, and it kind of overshadowed Stasiak's big win. Some people said he didn't deserve to be champion, while others thought he was just playing the bad guy role really well. This controversy followed Stasiak wherever he went. Now let's move to a more lukewarm controversy. Stasiak was known for being a stiff wrestler. What does that mean? Well, back in those days, wrestling was all about making the fights look real. But Stasiak sometimes took it a bit too far. He would wrestle really hard, and sometimes he would accidentally hurt the other wrestlers. There were stories about Stasiak getting into arguments with other wrestlers backstage because they were mad at him for being too rough. We don't know if all those stories are true, but they definitely made Stasiak seem like a tough guy to get along with. Even though he won the championship in 1973, Stasiak's time at the top didn't last very long. He lost the title back to Bruno Sammartino only 9 days later. And then something even stranger happened. He suddenly left the WWWF. Nobody really knows why he left. Did he get fired? Did he quit because he was upset? Did he have a big fight with the bosses? It's a total mystery. He kept wrestling for other groups, but he never reached the same level of fame that he had in the WWWF. Even though his wrestling career was full of ups and downs, Stasiak had a family that he loved. He got married and had a son named Sean. And guess what? Sean followed in his dad's footsteps and became a wrestler too. Sadly, he passed away on June 19, 1997. He was only 60 years old. He was in the hospital in Portland, Oregon, hoping to get a heart transplant, but unfortunately, he didn't make it. He had been having a tough time with his health for a while. His heart wasn't strong enough to pump blood properly, which made him very sick. It's like his body was filling up with water he couldn't get rid of. In the end, that's what caused him to die. Even though everyone knew him as this super tough wrestler, he wasn't invincible. As he got older, his body just couldn't keep up anymore. It's a sad reminder that even the strongest people can get sick. When he died, the whole wrestling world felt it. He was a champion wrestler, and even though some people didn't always like the way he did things, he was a big deal in the sport. Now for all the real fans, here is a quick rundown of his epic career. After all, his legacy is worth reliving. Stan kicked off his wrestling career back in 1958 after training in Montreal. He started out wrestling under the name Emile Coverley in Calgary and even made it to the iconic Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, where he squared off against Gino Marella, better known later as Gorilla Monsoon. By 1960, Stan had moved on to wrestling in St. Louis, where he adopted the name Stan Stasiak, honoring another wrestler who had passed away. This marked a turning point in his career. In 1961, he juggled matches in Canada and St. Louis and snagged his first championship, the NWA International Tag Team Championship, teaming up with Man Mountain Campbell. From 1964 to 1968, Stan was a major player in Calgary's Stampede Wrestling. He claimed the NWA Canadian Heavyweight Championship 4 times and the Stampede Wrestling North American Heavyweight Championship 3 times in 1968. He was a dominant force and a crowd favorite. In 1965, Stan started wrestling for Pacific Northwest Wrestling out of Portland, Oregon. He spiced things up by saying he hailed from Buzzard Creek, Oregon, which added some character to his persona. Over the next few years, he won the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship 5 times and the NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team Championship 4 times, solidifying his status as a regional hero. By 1969, Stan was making waves internationally. He toured Japan with the International Wrestling Enterprise and competed in the World Selection Series. One standout moment was his shot at the Trans World Wrestling Alliance World Tag Team Championship with his partner Tank Morgan, though it ended in controversy. In 1970, he headed to Australia, where he won his first world heavyweight title, the IWA World Heavyweight Championship, by defeating King Curtis Ayakia. Although his reign was brief, it was a big milestone. In 1971, Stan joined the WWWF and wrestled at legendary venues like Madison Square Garden. He faced off against wrestling icons such as Pedro Morales, Gorilla Monsoon, and Chief Jay Strongbow. While title matches often eluded him, he left a lasting impression on fans. That year, he also briefly teamed up with Jimmy Valiant, though the partnership didn't last long. Later in 1972, Stan moved to Texas and delivered some of his most memorable performances. He won the NWA Texas Heavyweight Championship by beating Red Bastion at the Parade of Champions, and even had a brief run as the NWA Brass Knuckles champion. His time in Texas added another exciting chapter to his career. Then came the crowning achievement of his career. In December 1973, Stan defeated Pedro Morales to become the WWWF Heavyweight Champion. Though his reign lasted just 9 days before Bruno Sammartino reclaimed the title, it was enough to cement Stan's legacy in wrestling history. Fans still remember him as the bridge between 2 legendary eras. Stan Stasiak had an incredible wrestling career that spanned over a decade and took him all over the globe. It all kicked off in February 1973 when he joined the newly formed All Japan Pro Wrestling. Wrestling under the name Crusher Stasiak, he competed in the Giant Series Total War Tour, where he squared off against Japanese stars like Madoshi Okuma, Munenori Higo, and Thunder Sugiyama. He even teamed up with American legend Harley Race for some matches. One of the most memorable moments from this tour came in his final match when he and Harley defeated Giant Baba and Samson Kutsuwada in a thrilling 2 out of 3 falls bout, leaving a strong impression on Japanese fans. Later that year, Stan returned to the U.S. and rejoined the WWWF in August 1973. Managed by the Grand Wizard, he set his sights on the WWWF Heavyweight Championship. Although his first attempts to dethrone champion Pedro Morales fell short, he kept pushing. Then on December 1, 1973, at the Philadelphia Arena, Stan pulled off a stunning upset. He defeated Morales in a dramatic match where he used a full Nelson hold that led to both wrestlers falling backward. With their shoulders on the mat, Stan lifted his just in time to secure the win and the championship. Stan admitted the victory was a complete surprise to him. Sitting in the locker room before the match, he expected the usual pre-match briefing, only to be told he'd be walking out as the new champion. His reign, however, was short-lived. Just 9 days later, on December 10, 1973, he lost the title to Bruno Sammartino at Madison Square Garden. Stan's time as champion was meant to bridge the gap between Morales and Sammartino without having them face off directly. Despite the brief stint, Stan always looked back on those 9 days as some of the happiest of his life. During his reign, he defended the title once, battling Chief Jay Strongbow to a no contest. Stan kept wrestling for the WWF until October 1974, taking part in high-profile matches, including a rematch with Sammartino. In April and May 1974, he returned to Japan, this time with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He joined their first-ever World League tournament, a major round-robin competition. On the opening day, he went head-to-head with Antonio Inoki in a match that ended in a time-limit draw. While Stan started strong and earned 5.5 points in the tournament, he didn't make it to the final rounds, which were ultimately won by Inoki, one of Japan's biggest wrestling icons. By 1975, Stan had shifted to wrestling for the St. Louis Wrestling Club. He became a regular on their TV show, Wrestling at the Chase, where he faced top names like Pat O'Connor, Edouard Carpentier, and Red Bastion. In October, he even challenged Bruno Sammartino again during a visit by the WWWF champion, though he didn't manage to win the title. Stan wrapped up his time in St. Louis in December 1975 after a tough loss to Terry Funk. Stasiak also became a popular figure in Canada during this period. Starting in July 1974, he wrestled for Frank Tunney's Maple Leaf Wrestling promotion in Ontario. One of his first major matches there was against Tiger Jeet Singh for the Asian title, but outside interference cost him the win. Stasiak then went on to challenge the Sheik for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship in a heated rivalry. Fans in Canada embraced Stasiak, especially after learning he was Canadian. Over the years, he faced numerous top wrestlers, including Jack Briscoe, Terry Funk, superstar Billy Graham, and Nick Bockwinkel, in attempts to capture various world championships. In January 1976, Stasiak joined Georgia Championship Wrestling, where he often teamed with other heel wrestlers like Abdullah the Butcher and the Spoiler. He won the NWA Macon Heavyweight Championship in March by defeating Dick Slater, but he lost the title the following month to Mr. Wrestling 2. He also competed for the NWA Georgia Tag Team Championship, teaming with Killer Brooks, but they were unable to win the titles. Stasiak left Georgia Championship Wrestling in October 1976. Stasiak returned to the WWWF for another stint in late 1976. In his first match back, he challenged Bruno Sammartino at Madison Square Garden and won by countout. However, he lost a rematch in a Sicilian stretcher match the following month. During this time, he teamed with several partners to challenge for the WWWF Tag Team Championship, but was unsuccessful. He continued to wrestle in the WWWF through 1978, regularly facing opponents like Gorilla Monsoon, Ivan Putski, and Peter Mavia. He also challenged Bob Backlund for the WWWF Heavyweight Championship in 1978, but did not win the title. Stasiak left the promotion for good in March 1979. In 1979, Stasiak returned to Japan for another tour with New Japan Pro Wrestling as part of the Big Fight Series. His matches included bouts against stars like Antonio Inoki, Tatsumi Fujinami, and Riki Choshu. He also teamed with Canadian wrestler Tiger Jeet Singh and Japanese wrestler Masa Saito during the tour. Stasiak's later career saw him return to the Pacific Northwest, where he became a mainstay in the regional wrestling scene. He won the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship twice more and the NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team Championship 4 times. In addition to wrestling, he worked as a commentator and photographer for the promotion. In the early 1980s, Stasiak also competed in Texas, where he won the NWA Texas Tag Team Championship and the NWA Brass Knuckles Championship. He officially retired from professional wrestling in 1984. After retiring, Stasiak worked various jobs. He was a car salesman in Oregon and later a security guard in Toronto. As his health began to decline, he returned to Oregon in 1994. Stasiak's contributions to wrestling were recognized with his induction into the Stampede Wrestling Hall of Fame in 1995. In 2018, he was posthumously inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, cementing his legacy as a respected figure in professional wrestling history. Stan Stasiak's career was filled with memorable matches, championship victories, and international tours. Although he was never a long-term champion, his role as a transitional champion and his matches against some of the biggest stars of his era made him a significant figure in wrestling. Fans and colleagues remember him not only for his skill in the ring, but also for his dedication to the sport and the legacy he left behind. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stan Stasiak's story is one for the ages, a wrestler who battled his way from humble beginnings to the heights of the wrestling world. From dominating in Canada to creating unforgettable moments in the WWF and beyond, his legacy is cemented in the sport's history. Whether it was his powerhouse moves, his championship reign, or his international tours, Stasiak always brought something special to the ring. If you enjoyed this look at Stan's career, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into wrestling history. And let us know in the comments, what's your favorite Stan Stasiak moment? Until next time, keep the spirit of wrestling alive, and we'll see you in the next video.